Posted by you, Edwardthecrazyman. Our story is called My Wife Went Missing Last Year and This Goes On Forever. Part 3. The least I could do was wipe my face dry of the blood. So I did that. I still felt sticky all over. Thank God the pack I brought with me is waterproof. The contents of it are only slightly ruined. It has occurred to me that I didn't describe the room I'm standing in. It almost looks as though some entity has sliced a segment of a mine tunnel out of its line and placed it here. The walls are dirt and stone and each corner of the room has a wooden pillar holding the ceiling up. They're beginning to bow. I was afraid to put too much pressure against them. The last thing I needed was to drown in a wave of dirt. The screams and howls went on and I felt as though I may lose my mind if I were to be forced to listen to them anymore. I could feel them growing louder and they were impossible to ignore. Each squeal threatened to demolish my senses and send me into a catatonic fit. If before it felt like they were rattling in my skull, it then felt as though my brain may, at any moment, split open like a bag too full. I gripped my baseball bat in both hands, being careful not to rub the spot where my pinky finger had been not too long ago. I reached out for the handle of the new door. "You scared?" said the whisper. I jumped back, again holding the bat with both hands and pivoting all around, looking for the source of the voice. Nowhere. I was scared, but in the relative safety of this room I was bolstered. "Fuck you." I shouted at the dirt walls around me. "She's dead, you know. She held on so long for you to come and rescue her." The voice hissed. Eventually, it laughed. "She had no fight left in her." I made sure of that. "Liar." The word came out small. At first I thought it was raining again. It wasn't. It was tears. Humans are so fragile. Her insides were soft and runny. I shouldered through the bodiless words and shoved the door open and was met with daylight. It was light. I stepped from the small room I'd been hiding in and into our home. I was in the hallway and I saw sunbeams shooting through the windows. It looked calm outside. I saw my neighbor on his front porch, sitting in one of those rickety plastic chairs while sipping on a frothy cold one. I was aghast and allowed the baseball bat to slide limply in my right hand while I walked down the hall. I turned and looked back at the small room I'd come from. It was still there. I could see the bowing wooden pillars and the dirt walls, but it was in the spot our bathroom should have been. I heard birds and that is when it occurred to me that I could no longer hear those screams. The day outside seemed idyllic and gentle and soft and normal. Then I smelled something stronger than the blood on me. It was bacon. I heard the popping sounds of sizzling meat coming from the kitchen. Someone was in the kitchen. I crept down the hallway to the threshold that led into the kitchen and the smell grew stronger and I heard someone shifting along the linoleum floors there. I bit my lip and mentally prepared myself. I was shaking. There she was. There she was. Alice at last. In our home. With her earbuds in, dancing like no one was watching while cooking breakfast. She was wearing her boy shorts and her no-show socks and her hair back in a ponytail and just oh god it was her through and through. She jumped at the sound of the metal bat clanging out of my hands and popped her earbuds out. Her expression was one of horror as she looked at me and in that sweet honeysuckle voice, she said, "Oh my God. Are you okay? Did you hurt yourself?" She saw my missing finger and recoiled a few times while examining it in her own hands. I couldn't speak. Hell, I could hardly breathe. It was a dream. A terrible nightmare of some kind. I slid against the stud of the threshold I'd been putting my weight against and crumpled to the floor. She hunkered down with me. I shook violently while she held me. "Shush, shush. It's all right. We can just sit here for a while." "That's okay, okay." She rubbed my spine. "We'll do that and then we can get you cleaned up. It'll be all right." I believed it would be. I showered and wrapped my hand. She offered me some breakfast but I couldn't eat. I was exhausted and I wanted nothing more than to sleep all of this off. Even though my body wanted to give up, my mind was still in that place. We laid together in bed. "We can lay here together forever." she said. Yeah. Forever. I smiled the biggest, dumbest grin. Perhaps through hell I had stumbled upon a pocket of heaven. It was like moving through a dream. I turned to her in bed, as I cradled her face. I could have gotten lost in those water-green eyes for days. Alice. I was frozen in fear as I said her name. It came out before I could even fully comprehend what I was seeing. Your eye. Her eyelashes on her right eye grew longer and longer as she stared at me. Forever, the word fell from her now drooping lips as though if it were caught on a record needle. The eyelashes formed legs and pressed against her cheek to pry the eye from the socket. I jumped out of bed, throwing the comforter against the wall. The comforter smacked against the wall wetly, and it wasn't a blanket anymore. It was patchwork skin and hair. I watched as the eye's legs continued to grow. Its appendages made a bone-snapping pop as the eyeball entirely freed itself from her face. Her form lay flat upon the bed, staring one-eyed into the ceiling. Forever. Can't expect us to get every detail right, can you? Whispered that bodiless whisper. The eyeball skittered across the bed like a newly born calf and threw its body into the dresser. It stood 2 feet tall on its innumerable legs. It stopped, stood up straight, and shifted to look at me. It mostly sounds stupid in retrospect, but the only words I could find to sum up what was happening were, "Oh, what the fuck," and then, "Why?" I looked at the eye, then at the door to the bedroom, then back at the eye. The creature mimicked my glances. I shouted and threw my arms out, attempting to look larger. It crouched and looked up at me. Was it scared of me? I thought this for about 1 second before one of its limbs shot out and stabbed me in the right shoulder. It was hot and metallic. It pulled its spidery leg out and stood tall again. I could feel the wet warmth running out of my shoulder and I gritted through the pain. I ran out of the bedroom and slammed the door shut, pressing my back against it. I grimaced as my own blood began to pool beneath me. The thing slammed into the door and shook the frame. I held steady. Again and again it bounced off the wood until I was sure the creature would splinter the thing into a million pieces, and me along with it. It went silent on the other side of the door. Had it given up? I looked at the droplet of my own blood in the floor, and that's when I saw the thing. Thousands of legs sliding underneath the space at the bottom of the door. I felt one of the limbs scratch against my ankle and I withdrew from the door, watching the thing slide legs first underneath it. I waited for it. I knew what to do. I saw the eye begin to edge its way underneath the door. I lifted my foot as high as I could and brought it down so hard I was afraid I might dislocate my knee. Its innards ran out of its iris and its limbs shot out in all directions, scrambled, then it was limp. I didn't dare go back into the bedroom, for the only thing I heard coming from there was the word "forever." I wondered if that doppelganger would say that well forever. The bat was still lying at the other end of the hallway. A lot of good it's done me so far. I went to retrieve it while nursing my shoulder. It was hard to get a good grip on the thing. The bat hung limply from my hands for a moment before it fell back to the ground. I bent back over to pick it up and slipped in my own blood. It was getting harder and harder to move. My vision was going. I took a knee and tried to prop myself back to my feet with the bat, but slumped into a sitting position. Everything was going blurry. I caught the brief glimpse of dust particles settling on a nearby windowsill. The world around me was shrinking into a needle point. I jerked a few times, attempting to jump-start my body. I just had to move. I had to get back up. This wasn't over. God damn it, this wasn't how I was going to die. I was falling apart inside. I groaned and moved my head back and forth. I heard the metal clatter of the baseball bat once again as it banged the ground against me. This was it. I was dying. I closed my eyes and focused on my breathing. In, out. In, out. My eyes opened. I was standing in the small room in this hellish place. I had never left. I had never gone through the door. My hand was still stretched out in front of me. I heard that bodiless voice laugh again. This time it was shrill, boisterous. I am losing my grasp on reality. This place is messing with my head. It infected me somehow. I can feel it coursing through my veins now. Maybe that makes no sense, but it is the very best way that I can explain it. I wanted to twist into a spiral of oblivion, fall into some dark abyss, and forget all of who I am and what I know. The vulgarity in which this place has touched me cannot be put into words, and so I am sorry for that. I spun around the small room, touching the dirt walls and the ground so as to make sure that they were tangible, real. How can I trust that? I can't, but it's better than nothing. I reached for the door I'd never opened and twisted its rusty knob. It creaked and dust shook from its frame as it pushed into a dimly lit room. I adjusted the bat, arching it over my shoulder, preparing to swing it at the very next thing I saw. Stepping into this new room, I flinched at every imaginary sound. This room was much larger, the walls seemed to go up into infinity and meet one another at some unseen point, for I saw no ceiling. My footfalls echoed. There were candles everywhere. Millions of them of varying heights. They rested on the stone floor. Their flames flickered restlessly at my presence. "Hello?" I said timidly into the room. My own voice echoed back at me, and I was struck by how meek it sounded. The candles lying on the floor were arranged in a way so that their negative space creates a 3-foot walkway. I've been walking in between these candles for hours now, writing as I go. This room seems to never end. Every hour, well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. Time has no meaning here. Every so often I sit in this path and rest. My feet are aching. The candles do well enough to light the immediate area around me, but sometimes my eyes stray up and I wonder, how far does that ceiling go? How far down am I? I am now sure that it does go on forever. I feel as though someone is watching me, standing among the candles. But every time that I turn to face the voyeur, they're gone, and I am faced with nothing more than the dancing shadows upon the wall that those small flames create. At least it's warm.